We should just tell people who might be joining this live stream what we're doing. This is reviewing the design of function text cases, which has been in the system as experimental function for a while, and we're hoping to make it more robust and polished. So, okay, let's look here.
I guess, I guess there's two things. There's a pure design question, because if we want to de-experimentalize it for 12, we definitely need to sort that out. And then I guess Jérôme could maybe, just out of interest, can talk a little bit about his efforts to.
Well, I mean, the question is, I thought we were making it significantly more robust with significantly more types. What's happened with that?
Yes. Yeah, so for that, Jérôme created a big data set. How many sentences do you have? 10 millions?
Yeah, about 10 millions, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, but okay, so what is the question here? So right now we have current behavior. What's wrong with the current behavior?
Okay. So let's design. Okay. So just to remind the current behavior, you can give a type. By the way, we call it form in documentation. I'm not sure everybody speaks about type naturally, so maybe we should change form to type.
I'm not sure about that, but keep going.
Okay. Okay, so if you have only one form, when you have a list, it acts like an alternative. Okay, so you see, for example, here there's no repetition, even though, I don't know, fox is both a word and a noun.
Yes.
No repetition. And same when you ask for the position. So, okay, but you can also ask for a property, right?
Yep.
And so basically by default, it's like the property is string. And there's something quite strange is now I ask for both type and string in order for me to understand, if it was.
Yeah, I understand. But there are two different types, so they're different, and so those become separate elements.
Exactly.
Oh, so now it's called type as opposed to form.
Actually, it is called type. Yes.
Let's see that in
the function. It's called type. Yes, it's just in documentation here we call it form, whatever. And then there's a bit of a problem here. I mean, not a problem, but suddenly now the size
it's
of the
having two jumps.
Yeah, there's two. Actually, it's strange because it's a verb, but whatever. And why is it? Okay, it's probably wrong on this one. And there's two dog.
Yeah, in fact, what on earth was it doing up there in text cases up at the top where you asked for noun and it just gives the wrong answer there?
Yeah, it gives the wrong answer, yeah.
That's not good. Okay.
Yeah, you got it wrong there. Okay, but yeah, so you have this, hopefully it's going to be better in the next version. You have this repetition and, okay, fine. And even here, yeah, I don't have type present. And so there's been this kind of delete duplicate that has been applied.
Yeah, okay, so that's crazy. So let's look at your alternatives here.
So the alternative is pretty simple, is when you have only one type, it doesn't change anything. When you have two type, it's now an association, with the keys being each type, corresponding to the type. And you can still have the properties. So basically by default,
well, the problem with that is it doesn't thread through where those things occurred.
Yes, but you can have alternative. So if you want to have the previous behavior,
I see.
You can have something like alternative, which is pretty easy to do. And then you have the same behavior as before. And
well, what does cases do with a list? Look up cases.
Yeah.
It doesn't support a list as a second argument. The list, it's a pure pattern as a second argument. Okay.
Yeah. But if I do, and I don't know, F.
Blank or anything, just blank. It'll say nothing because it's not. It's just looking for that literal pattern. All right. Well, that's a pretty reasonable argument for why. Okay, so you're proposing if there's a list there. Okay, so And why exactly in that second thing that you're showing there, that with several properties, the consistent thing to do, it seems to me, would be to have the right-hand side be an association.
The right-hand side being an association as well.
That's what I'm suggesting. Yes.
Okay, so kind of the transposed.
Well, no. So I'm saying that there, what it says, word, arrow, association, string, whatever. Now, if we did that, if you made this into a data set,
and then we have something like this. Yep.
No, what are you doing there? No, that's not what I'm suggesting. Oh,
really?
Oh, I was suggesting something different. I was suggesting every.
Isn't it the compromise, Etienne, that we are?
I'm suggesting that every word, the right-hand side of its rule would be an association. See what I'm saying? A little the comma 1 3 would turn into association string arrow the position arrow 1 3.
I see. Okay, I'm not. Actually, that wouldn't be.
Right, because then what you're saying is the list turns into an association. So it's similar to what happens with the this still unnamed association building function that goes from
Yeah, I'm not such a fan of that.
Why? It would be a list of strings and
because there will be a lot of repetition, and actually the other one is kind of okay.
Why is it consistent? I don't understand why that's consistent. I mean, if you take that second form there, it will make a nice.
So that's what you say.
Yeah, I'm saying word goes to a list of associations, noun goes to a list of associations. So I think in terms of a data set, that will be something quite reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be pretty heavy.
What about having the transpose of this instead of a list of association and an association of lists?
Yeah, I think that would make more sense, but I mean, not more sense, but
well, I mean, it's a question of how these things are going to be used, and I think that's what we need to look at.
Yes.
Okay, so let's look at your compromise solution, and then let's go back.
No, actually, no. There's no compromise. We decided against it.
Okay.
So.
Right.
This
look, provisionally,
lightest weight.
Yeah, it just doesn't very consistent.
And it follows. Well, it's a different thing, right? It's a really special case. This is just a type.
Yeah.
And here it follows the structure of.
Look, I think it's a question of the use cases. What will you use this for? I mean, think about the code that goes through and takes, the string, and it does. I mean, let's say, for example, let's write highlighting code. Let's imagine we're writing highlighting code.
Okay. Yeah.
So there, what we're going to end up doing is taking every noun, for example, and so okay, fine. So do it. Compute that.
Which is wrong, by the way.
Yeah, it's wrong, but let's not worry about that. Okay. So now, but now what you want, well, actually, for highlighting, you just need to know the positions.
Yeah.
So let's say noun arrow position. No, noun arrow position.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so now it'll be some kind of, I don't even know how you do that, because, we've got to put styles around those things, but that's just a string right now.
Yeah. So that would be putting into words as well.
What do you mean?
I guess you'd split it into words and then just styling the word. I don't think you can style something inside a string.
Well, you can, but it's not an easy thing to do. I mean, you can using style boxes and things. It will change the character positions and so on in a weird way.
Otherwise, it will be get the word. Actually,
no, that's a big mess because you don't know how those positions relate to the words.
Yep. I mean, it will be extract. Okay, it's going to be a string take. Yeah, okay. Let's do it.
So an interesting question. Let's say you'd done text words before you ran text cases, okay? So take a look at what happens there.
Text word before, okay.
Text words
the same as
what
I did before.
On the fox, on the brown thing, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now say text cases of that common noun. Text cases of that list.
Oh no, this won't work. Oh yeah, okay.
No. Try it. Try it. Completely crazy.
Yeah, because
it's completely crazy.
Because it doesn't have any
it has
context.
no context. But the question is, should text cases in that case treat that as a single, treat that as something where all the pieces are together, or should it?
No, I think it should map. And in order to be listable, in order to be able to send a lot of text, and it's just
fine, but it's only listable in the first argument, right?
Yes. I mean, arguably, there's some sort of listability in the second there.
Okay, let's keep going because I want to understand more use cases. Because right now, that highlighting, well, you've got highlighted string for text cases.
So here I will do string take. Right. If I do something like that, does it work?
Yeah.
And so it will be a string take, up to 21.
No, this is absolutely grotesque. What's got to happen here? I mean, it's some kind of weird fold of a string take.
No, what you have to get is to extract this part, extract this part, extract this part. So it would be.
Yeah, I understand, but it's a string take drop of that list, I think. It should be you should be able to do a string take of a do line 57 in the second argument of string take.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, now say string take drop. Try string take drop. Do we have that?
I don't think so. Never heard about it.
Well, take drop we certainly have.
No, that would be useful.
Look at take drop.
Otherwise
look at take drop. Look up take drop.
2, 4.
Yeah, but I don't know what happens if you give it. If you give it multiple elements to take in the second argument of take drop, I don't know what it does. But this particular thing of string take drop, I mean, this is an operation that we're going to want to do, right? That is, you've got some special pieces of this is reminiscent of sequence alignment, where, and I've never been very happy. If you look up sequence alignment, look up sequence alignment. Okay. So you see what that's doing. That's got a list where some elements are just plain strings and other elements are are lists there that indicate the different things that are on the different, pieces of DNA or whatever. You get what I'm saying? So that's a case where, so in this case, what we really want for this highlighting thing is something analogous to that. That is some kind of list where you're going along and then somehow, I mean, I would have thought that text element is the thing that we should be putting in there, that we should have a way of taking a string and decorating it with text element. Get what I'm saying? By the way, we've got some background noise. It'd be great to get rid of that.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can try to go in another room.
Okay, no matter.
There's a bean. It's probably better. Okay. Otherwise, for this, I mean, in practice, what we do is a flatten of this and then add, prepend.
Yeah. This is totally grotesque.
One append.
-1.
String. Oh yeah, I guess -1 will go as well. And then partition.
Oh, come on.
Well,
okay.
That would work.
Yeah, of course it will work. Right. Okay. So let's go back. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So what you're describing there. Okay, first question is, how do we annotate? You know, what does annotated text look like? And the answer is something with text element, presumably.
Yes.
That's how we're doing annotation. So it should be the case that something like text cases is capable. I mean, text cases is more like pull out, you know, like I've got a document, show me all the countries in this document. Okay. A different issue would be show me the document with countries highlighted.
Yes. So that's actually we thought about doing something for text cases. We haven't thought about design yet, but it is in find textual answer already.
Well, okay? So how does highlighted string work there? What does it actually return?
So here. What? The number of alternatives must be a positive integer.
You have to put one before.
That is not an English. That is not a correct English message. Guys, you need to get somebody to go through and edit those.
Oh, I see. I have to put a one before.
Wait a second. Did you hear?
I know. Yeah. The number of there should be a S here.
Well, the number of alternatives must be. It is not the case of that. It's
not the case of.
I think I can back translate that from French.
Oops.
But it's not correct.
Yeah. There's an issue. Yeah. Okay. Let's write down up.
Okay. All right. So can you get that one?
Yeah. Oops. Another one. Did you mean highlighted line? Oh, it's highlighted line? No.
Sentence or line?
What is the thing?
Highlighted
sentence or line? Oh, okay.
Well, highlighted sentence is going to be very exciting, right?
Yeah, it's going to be the same sentence. Okay, let's put it at the next one. Up. Oblique was the highlighted sentence. Yes. God, this tells a bit something about the design as well. That you need to tell the number of questions before.
Okay, so what is that structure? Just do an input form of that.
Yeah.
And why did it give an error over on the right-hand side?
Why?
Okay, go look at the input form of that.
Yeah, but why? If I do input form, okay.
No, so that's a string with that's exactly the thing I was talking about, an embedded style information inside the string, which is fairly grotesque. But you know, if it's a string, it's a string. I don't think that's really the right way to do it. I think the right way to do it is with text element stuff.
Yes.
So let's look at, in the case of text structure, your quick brown fox. Let's look at the text structure of the quick brown fox. Just take that string and say text structure of it. And then let's take a look at what that looks like. Because I think that's what we're going to want to turn. Okay, so, you know, we've got multiple things like this. The sequence alignment thing is another case a little bit like this. Why is this taking forever?
No idea.
Yeah, someone on the live stream is pointing out that the name of this function should be highlight text, just like highlight image, and you're absolutely correct. Okay, what is this doing? Is this the head branch build?
Yes.
Well, who knows, but that looks like a problem. Okay. In any case, that will be something that has nested text elements in it.
Yeah. Okay, let's go back to 11.3.
Okay, but let's move on to some later parts of your, you're not using desktop. Okay, so one of the issues is, you know, how decorated is the stuff returned by these NLP functions? And I think that in general, we should be using all this text element stuff and make it decorated. it's much more likely to be actually computable with if we do that. Okay, now look at the input form of that.
What is going on?
I don't know. You didn't do.
Did I? Oh, what? What is going on? My front end's in. Okay, well, okay.
Okay. Yeah, so this is a hierarchical structure. So, okay, imagine you have a piece of text and you're trying to indicate where there are countries in it. Okay?
Yep.
What are you doing? Oh. The question is, how do you want to structure that text? So, for example, the case of sequence alignment, as you saw, it's mostly the main, the string where both sides agree, and then there are little sublists where the strings don't agree, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's one way of indicating something special. So, for instance, what we could do, I'm not necessarily saying it's correct, is we could have something where the result is a list. I don't like that very much. Where it's a list where it contains the main text as a string, broken up by things that say text element of blah, comma, country.
Mm-hmm. I see. So you start with normal string, like the quick, and suddenly you have a text element here.
Yes.
You say?
Yeah, I don't like this very much. I think we're better off thinking about the way that this nested text element structure. Whew. Jerome, what do you think here? I mean, in terms of the way these things are going to be used, people are going to want to, pull out. So a typical thing will be
probably
should
be a text element on the outside.
I think so. But let's take a typical example. Okay, so we're saying there are countries in this text. Okay, show me the context. Well, I mean, we've got a way to do that, specifically in text cases, don't we? We've got something which says, show me all sentences that contain the country.
Yeah,
Japan.
so it's containing, yes. Yes.
Right, but the question is that the only thing one's going to want to do? And if one got it out as a text element structure, how easy would it be? And the answer is, if you broke it into sentences, right? If the outer text element contained a sequence of sentences, and then some of those sentences had, inner country text elements, it would be tolerably easy to take that apart.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's keep going down your agenda because we've got more things to figure out here.
Yeah, which calls for function, maybe text contents as well. But
which we don't have yet.
Different, yeah. New type for word and punctuation. Actually, we believe that we should not have a new type for word plus punctuation. It's a very classic operation. So at some point we thought about something, I don't know how we could call it, but now I believe that
the tokenization.
What's that?
Yeah.
It's about the tokenization, like in NLP, normally you pre-process the sentences to get both word and punctuation as tokens.
That's what people call tokenization. I believe.
So why don't we have a thing called token instead of just word?
Okay, that's surprising. Okay, I wouldn't have.
Why not?
I don't know.
That was our first idea, but token is very large. Like it can mean a character, subword.
I see.
I mean, that's a usual name in NLP. Huh? In the NLP community, when they speak of token, they speak about that. I personally found it a bit weird because what is it for people that are not in the NLP communities? It's like, what's a token? It can be anything.
Okay, well, so what do we think word plus punctuation should be called?
Maybe we don't have to create a new type. Like that's maybe it's enough to be able to do this.
Word, vertical bar, punctuation. Well, do you have is there a punctuation?
Yeah, we have punctuation. Yes. So
well, okay, fair enough.
Already,
word, vertical bar, punctuation doesn't seem terrible to me.
Yeah.
What is that stuff about?
Okay, no, this is just okay. We might switch the tokenizer to use Stanford tokenizer, but it requires Java, and so of course with a problem
hopeless
that comes with, such as not supporting iOS.
Yeah, right. We're really trying to avoid using Java for these things for those kinds of reasons.
Okay, so
There
probably no.
I mean, from a release engineering point of view, is there well, first of all, is there a version that's in C? Second of all, if all else fails, it's presumably rather standalone Java and could be translated into C automatically.
I see.
It's not going to be something which is full of
We have to find another solution. I agree.
Okay.
And we will. I mean, there's even Stanford is not the only tokenizer that exists. So.
But now this is a neural net-based tokenizer at this point, yes?
No.
So that's the old-fashioned tokenizer.
Yes.
I thought there was a new tokenization. What's that?
It's statistical. Like it's a statistical method also.
Yeah, I understand, but wasn't there a bunch of progress made recently on multilingual tokenizers? I mean, there's certainly part of speech tagging, right?
And
Multilingual part of speech tagging.
Yeah.
Which is done with standard modern neural nets.
Yes. There was some progress. I think Google released something of this kind.
Okay, but my question is, okay, so when you say, text word is, what are we doing right now for text word? Is that our own tokenizer? Is that
it's our own tokenizer, a bunch of regex.
Is it regexes or is it a neural net thing?
No, it's regex, and it's the text sentence that use machine learning. It's not a neural net, but text sentence, in order to take the decision, is it an abbreviation or is it,
Right, which we trained like 2 years ago or something now.
Exactly.
Okay. So why are we not doing our own? I mean, how hard is this problem, and how? I mean, what's the main issue? The main issue is hyphenation and stuff like this. And
for example, yes. Which, by the way, we don't have a clear definition about what a word is. I remember we had bad design time ago. We were kind of confusing what should be a word and what we will be able to identify as a word.
Let's take the example of our friend, Tom Wickham-Jones. Okay.
Yep.
Should we be able to recognize that? First of all, is Wickham-Jones the word, or are each of those names separately words? How do we want to define that?
Well, that's a good question.
You can ask Tom what he thinks, whether his name is 2 words or not. But seriously, it seems like, in a case like that, the right answer is to parameterize it and to decide and to let people have a choice of what they want to do. The question is, there are words that are, I don't know. I'm trying to think of one that is a hyphenated word in English. Is helter-skelter a hyphenated word? I can't even remember. Gosh, what's a hyphenated, just standard word? I mean, in word list, I'm sure we can figure out whether in word list there are hyphenated words. There will be some hyphenated words. And the conventions are a bit different in different languages. Also, if you have a contracted thing like don't, is don't one word? Presumably, yes.
Jérôme will...
Yeah, for the Java tokenizer, it will split it in two because it was designed for part of speech tagging. So it will tag do and not.
Okay, but that's wrong. I mean, that's a different thing. To take those contractions and expand them is a different action, right? So let's go back and ask the question.
Eventually, we could have several types, given different names, just...
Can we look at the documentation for text words, please?
Yep.
Okay. So we don't have a lot there. Okay. All right. So can you just try typing in like Tom's name and see what text words does?
Yep. 1 second. Actually, 1 second. I have to go.
Or I can share if you want.
Yeah, maybe I'll let you share for now.
Okay.
How do I? Where is the?
Just quit.
Oh, here you go.
Okay. All right. So let's take a look at text words. We'll pick on Tom here. Okay, so it's decided that that hyphenated thing is a single word. And presumably, if we say, you know, don't feed the red birds. Okay, it's just going to do that. So is it really basically breaking on
yeah, I think it's very simple. I think that all the hyphens are considered linking. Yeah, it's never breaking.
So what happens if I say like okay, so it's basically just removing punctuation. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, but if I did a single hyphen there, it would think it was text, which is reasonable enough. Okay, I mean, this doesn't seem stupid to me. There's a whole different thing of removing the contractions, and I think that should be a separate function to remove contractions.
Yeah. No, I think we shouldn't change the behavior of word. Maybe in some future we can add some extra, just because it's different class of word tokenization that exist. And
well, it's not clear to me what the different class is. I mean, other than removing contractions. Okay. All right. So that's that. So what was next on your list?
So let me see.
You were going to demo something that Jerome was working on.
I mean, Jerome could demo what.
Yeah, please. Could you do that? What you've got with a larger number of types. You want to?
While Jerome gets ready, since we're gonna have a lot of types, like 100 and how many, Jerome?
Yeah, here it's 150. These new types.
So we should probably have a way for the user to discover the types programmatically.
Okay. Whose screen is this? Is this Jerome?
Yes. Sorry.
Okay. Great.
Yeah. So maybe because Etienne is raising an important question is for the moment I introduce a global variable like this one, inspired like interpreter types.
Yeah.
To list all the
what is D?
Types.
What is D? After check, it says D.
I don't know.
Okay. All right.
It's a language. It's a language. It's programming language, which can be specified with entities also.
That's really weird. Oh gosh, that's really weird. Okay, so back up and let's see what this actually does.
Okay, so yeah, here is the demo. So I'm finding all the entities I can with my neural network. So it's taking, for example, the given name, the person, and after it takes cases, we'll take the sublist, asks back the user, and only point at them. And one question also is whether we introduce a type for all of these entities or not. Because for the moment, we're going to ask for country, language. This is the list of all the entities that I'm recognizing with the same network.
Okay. And how does that relate to the complete list of entities that we have linguistics for?
It's a fair fraction.
Okay.
I think half of them. No.
Okay.
With respect to what?
Like how many of the entities and interpreter types?
Well, for example, interpreter types.
Yeah, I think there's like what 500.
It's half of the entities, and interpreter types. It's
which ones do you not cover? I mean, clearly all the computed stuff you don't cover.
I think it's this one which gives the list. Yeah, I'm not covering. Yeah, half of them actually.
Well, so which half? I mean, the like exoplanet or something. You're probably not covering that.
Let's do this. Yeah, there are a lot of things about food where actually I should. Here is the thing that the approach that I took to make the data set was not relevant. There are the disease.
It could be added later. The food stuff could be added later.
Yeah, but some of these things are very different. These are not really natural language type things. Like ICD-9 classifications are, well, I mean, they could occur in running text. All right, let's go back to what exactly you're doing here. So you've got something where could you scroll down to your thing here? Okay, so what is that structure that you're generating? Is that a bunch of text elements in that output?
Yeah, it's a row, which is basically.
I think it's just a row and with stylized. This is just internal stuff to
Okay.
This is just a visualization.
Okay. So this is where we would really want to use the text element mechanism. But do you understand the point? There's the same issue as with sequence alignment, that you've got stuff that is just there for position, so to speak. In other words, the untagged pieces, and then you've got parts that are there with tagging. Get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, how do we set that up?
But also, you have to. There is an overlap, like Etienne Bernard, for example. Both are person. This one is given names, surnames. So if you use a flat, it's not that simple as.
No, I understand. You're saying that there are pieces that can be, well, in that let it be there on line 3. That's a single token, right? There's not 3 separate movies, let it and be.
No, it's a single token.
Right. So the issue is we've got to be able to represent potentially nested things where, I mean, we have that in the chart print mechanisms in the Wolfram Alpha parser debugging system.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how those are represented. I mean, they may be, in the case, that is primarily for output.
Can you repeat? Where do we have this, please?
Chart print. And somebody like Jeremy Michelson would know all about it. I'm not optimistic that it's going to be revealing for this. I think it's a thing that is built primarily for debugging output. Okay, but you understand the issue, right? So we've got 3 types of things here. We've got things that are tagged. So if we look at text structure, right, we've got a bunch of nested text elements, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, now none of those all those nested text elements are tagged with something. And none of them, okay. I'm trying to understand how we would do the tagging. So for example, let's imagine that, Etienne Bernard is a single person with that name, but also Etienne is a given name. Bernard might be both a given name and a surname. In this case, it might be recognized as a surname, right? So the question is, what would be the structure that represents that? Get what I'm asking?
Yes.
So, okay, that's something we have to figure out. So let's scroll down. Let's see a little bit more stuff of what you have. So
I don't know. Well, that's a demo.
Yeah, okay. And when you have, it's complicated when you have also a partial overlap.
Indeed. Indeed.
But are we thinking for the highlighted rendering of text cases or about a new function that will tag everything?
No, we're talking about both things because they've got to work the same way.
Yeah, okay.
I think the highlighted stuff from text cases is probably nothing should be. Okay, so let's okay. Can you unshare?
Yes.
All right. So the main issue here is, right, we've got text structure, which is okay. So text structure, what? Oh, text. This is, I'm now running some prototype build, I think. So this may or may not. Oh, maybe I'm not. I don't know what's happening here. Why is there no loading indicator? Oh, there we go. Okay. So this has the feature that it has tagging here with text elements. Everything is tagged, but some things are hierarchically tagged. Nothing is tagged twice here. Am I making sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the issue that you're raising is, how does one represent something where there is tagging, where there's overlapping tagging, right?
Yeah.
Well, what is one going to do with it? Do you understand my question? So, for example, here, if I were to take this, you know, by the way, I don't know what the background noise is, but it'd be really good to not have it. So this is some kind of tree structure, and our trees system that's coming would be able to take this tree structure and do something with it. But I don't know what you want to do. Like, for example, let's say, okay, let's just understand what it would take to extract every prepositional phrase from here, right? I think it's kind of a mess. What would we actually do to get that?
I mean, yeah, for that thing, text cases is, you know, much better. It's exactly what text cases is doing.
Yeah, I understand, but what this particular thing, you know, this is something. Let's imagine we want to do an operation on this. What will we actually do? Well, let's take the text cases case, right? Let's imagine you've got this tagged in various ways. So we've got text cases, and we've looked for, well, the noun version seems to be horrifying, but anyway, let's try verb here. Okay, that's correct at least. So what? So what are you going to do with it, given that you've tagged the verb here? Am I making sense? What's the next step in the processing pipeline, Jerome?
Yeah, you can use this as features along with words to do an NLP task.
Yeah, but what NLP task? That's my point. I mean, my point is, let's pick
classifying a document.
Okay, well, let's talk about that task, because that task is not one, you know. Okay.
Or I think searching for special documents will be more the use case.
Yeah. I think all these functions are mostly. I don't think there's such a big pipeline after that. You know, it can be a word cloud. It can be, but it's usually a human that will get the information, and like for machine learning pre-processing, you would rather use the internal neural network of text cases as a feature extractor.
Okay, so if I say text cases of this, comma, country, okay, and in fact, if I say text cases of that country, arrow entity, right?
Interpretation. Is
that what we're calling it?
Yeah.
I wish it auto-completed. Why isn't the auto-completer working in that case?
Yeah, this is, I mean, when you have the arrow, when you have a rule, it only completes for the type, but not for the...
Well, it should be able to complete for the right-hand side.
Yeah, I guess we...
That's crazy that comes out as a country there.
No, but world is a country actually.
It's not. It's not. That was.
No, I know. For me also, but
it was changed. The way that if interpreter still is doing that, then it's a bug.
Okay.
And that should be tracked through. Who's
Sushma? I'm here.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Could you please get that tracked through, because
Yep.
that isn't right.
Mm-hmm.
That was changed a while ago. Okay, so what this did, though, was somewhat useful, right? It's saying, what countries are in this article, right? So, for example, I could go and look at, let me do something real. Okay, let me say, let's say this. Text cases, for example, let's say that what I wanted to do in my pipeline was make, hold on. So I want to do text cases, country arrow interpretation. And then I want to do it for, let's say, let's get some elements. Now let's go 50, 55. I have no idea what those are. Okay. So now, presumably, if I do this, let's see what happens. Splarf. Okay, what happened there?
Missing, not available. So apparently Wikipedia data returns missing.
But it shouldn't for that. Right? If I take that and I put in that entity, it should do just fine. So let's see what happens. Oh, that's crazy. That's another bug.
Because there is curation, right, to link the entities to Wikipedia page.
Yeah,
Right. Partial.
Right. There is. So that should work there. But that, Susma, can you report that bug? I'm very surprised by that bug.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yep. So that's pretty cool what that just did, right? So if we get rid of the world things there, if we delete cases, that, comma, I'm just trying to understand a use case that we can look at, okay? Also something that could wind up in the documentation. Okay, and now I say, let's say geolist plot. And this will hopefully show me. Sushma, can you comment that thing down at the bottom there should be, it should have had ... but it only has a single dot. Oh, now it's doing 3 dots. I don't know why.
I think it is incrementing till 4 dots.
Oh, I see. But it says the 1 dot looks weird. It should probably start at 2 dots.
Okay.
Hadn't thought of that. Well, that's pretty cool, right? So that's an example of a semi-real use case, right, for this.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about, and for example, classifying, these documents based on what countries appear in them and things like that, right? I understand that use case, and that seems to work, design-wise, that seems to work quite nicely. Make sense?
Yep.
So now for human purposes, getting out the particular sentences, what sentence did Thailand appear in, for instance? Yeah. By the way, this is not your code here, right, Jerome? This is older code. This is, no, that's 11.3. So is your code, what's that?
Jerome already started to do bug fixes between 11.2 and 11.3, but it's mostly the previous version, yeah.
But this is really very nice what it did here. So again, walk me through use cases. I mean, this is clearly useful, right? To get one of those sentences out with tagging that can be seen by a human is also useful. I'm not sure what the machine is going to do with that tagging. Jerome, can you comment on that, please? You're probably on mute. What's that?
You mean the geographical map?
No.
No, like after the tagging, what kind of program we could run after that? I'm not a big fan of. I don't see that many use cases of programmatically accessing the results.
Well, okay, listen. The traditional story of NLP, always used to be, oh my gosh, we have to, do parsing, we have to figure out all kinds of computational linguistics stuff, and then it will be wonderful. But actually, I haven't seen very many use cases for that. I've seen entity extraction, and what else? Yeah,
I mean, they can be used as feature extractor. So once you have a network that can do the entity recognition, for example, or the grammatical parsing, or you can use that as feature. These networks, you can cut them, use them as feature extractors to be used in for some other task. I rarely see a task that is solved by first doing a parsing, let's say, and then acting on the parse tree. You see what I mean? Or reading the parse tree. Right. So usually it's there's no symbolic interface usually. You use a thing and you still have a numeric interface to go through your task. So for me, it's mostly like the visualization thing. For me, it's mostly with humans. However, except when you want to extract things, like you can extract all the noun phrase. In order to do fact extraction, it might be very sensible to first extract the noun phrase and then worked on that. I've seen people, I mean, there's some people that wanted to use text structure and do stuff with it, which is beyond visualization, but it's probably because we don't have yet in text cases.
Well, let me give an example of something people might want to do. And so on. Right? So let's say you're doing fact extraction and it says, Alan Turing, wrote a paper about universal computers, and he also worked on theoretical biology. Okay. So what you would like to turn that into is something which might be the statements, Alan Turing worked on universal computers. Alan Turing wrote a paper about theoretical biology. That is, you want to resolve, you want to simplify that, factor it out in that kind of way. Am I making sense?
Mm-hmm.
And that's, that is a common thing where people are doing pronoun, what does the pronoun refer to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, the question is, from all of this tagging stuff, it's a big, complicated mess to do that. And it seems like the operation you're really trying to do is a different operation there. The question, look, I mean, one thing one could imagine is something which is, where we put something in, which we could do probably with a nice neural net method, which is essentially a pronoun resolver, right? Which just simplifies every, Jerome, am I making sense here? That makes the text extremely boring for a human to read, but resolved in terms of pronouns.
Mm.
And as a pre-processing step for fact extraction, that seems quite useful. I mean, are we effectively doing that in our fact extractor or not? Or is that coming out from some other kind of, training thing that is not, specific? Because I think that's the, ultimately most, the fact extraction stuff boils down to a bunch of largely templated, pieces of extraction, I think. But the place where that doesn't work is with pronouns and things. Am I making sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for now, we don't really have a fact extractor, but we have the fine textual answer.
Right.
But it doesn't use, I mean,
but it doesn't use computational linguistics. It uses pure neural net stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so let's loop back to what some of the questions are here, okay? So you've got some design issues with text cases, which I think are a little hard to resolve until we know what text cases is going to be used for beyond the obvious, so to speak. I think the thing to do with your alternatives thing, that's obviously correct. Okay, I don't really have a problem with that.
Yeah.
In terms of the right-hand side and whether it should generate sub-associations,
I think it's too heavy.
I'm not sure.
And it's also, yeah, a smaller change from the current design.
What is a smaller change?
Like the change of keeping the list.
Look, the main issue with the list thing is this. You're right that this question about whether it has two copies when there are two instances. It's probably okay to do your association thing and to leave the right-hand side to be a list. I'm not totally certain.
Yeah.
It's a challenge to, I'm not keen to de-experimentalize it before we actually understand more of the pipeline to see whether that's actually correct. Okay, but let's loop back. So we've got that. Now the next question is that somewhat bizarre list of things that can be used as the text case, the things to essentially search for in text cases, right? The token types.
Yes. Which, by the way, there is a type, but you can also do text cases. Like instead of country, you can say text cases and you put just Brazil.
Well,
you can also do a specific entity.
Yeah, okay. All right. So let's do that in the case of this thing here.
So you have like string type, and then you have,
Okay, so then what do I do? So if I want to get the sentences containing that, what do I do?
Containing.
Really? Or do I just say arrow sentence?
No. It would be the you created basically a new type, so it's sort of pattern, right? Containing. I don't remember if it's first argument or second sentence. Yeah, sentence, comma.
Okay, so yeah, that's quite nice. So could I also do containing noun phrase, comma Brazil, or does that not work?
Once we have noun phrase, it should.
Sushma, do you know where I'm storing any of this stuff?
There is a text structure.
There's a text search. I don't see a text structure. Let's start one for NLP.
Okay.
Okay, so, this is pretty useful. This seems pretty sensible, what we have here. And presumably what we could do here, if we wanted to, is to say arrow position. Oops.
Yep.
And we'll get that.
Yep.
Handy. Okay. All right. So the thing you want to do, you want something which can generate a highlighted version of this, at least a visually highlighted version, in a not totally absurd way. It's just hard to know how to do that. I mean, to put it in the string, it's really a mess. I mean, it's either a string or it's not a string, basically. If it's not a string, it's a row box of some kind, in which case it's completely flexible what we can put in there. But then we can't manipulate it as a string. And then, for example, it's not, text cases itself can't take row boxes as input, right? So that's bad if you have something which is highlighted and then you feed it back as input. It's not able to deal with that, which is not good. I mean, unless we agree that text, which to me suggests strongly that we should be using text element. By the way, what is that background noise? It's driving me nuts. I mean, you know, it suggests to me that we should be using text element and make sure that text cases can take in things which have text elements. So right now, if I take this with text elements and I feed that in, is that going to work in text cases?
No. Or I would be surprised. Maybe that's something that I meant. I don't think it does.
No, it won't work.
Okay, well, but this is presumably should work, right?
Yeah. I mean,
so okay. Look, to me, what we need to do, the tagging, the visible tagging stuff should be done with text element in some way. Text cases and the other text manipulation functions have to know how to take in a text element, you know, hierarchy. And, you know, if they were extremely clever, they could use that hierarchy in their processing. What were you going to say?
Yeah, that you lost the white spaces in text element. I'm just concerned about this, that like you don't have the transformation to get the original string from the output of text structure.
Yeah, well, that's interesting, isn't it?
We could keep the white space in some way.
We could. Yes, we could, as a thing not displayed in the text structure output, but in the text elements. But where would the white space go? Because the white space, the text elements are tagging words here. The white space is into word.
Or we lose completely the computability, and we just do a, you know, text visualization thing where you just have the string, and as a second argument, you have.
Yeah, well, so in the case of,
and it just shows.
Okay, so highlight image has the feature that the thing you get back, because an image is an image, so to speak. Right, this thing here. Yeah. What's that?
Yeah, it's still an image.
Well, whatever. That was stupid. Right. Right. So that sort of idempotence is not present for strings. Right. So that is very interesting. So what do we do? I mean, it is, look, I mean, the fact is there is a way to stuff, you know, styling into a string. And if we wanted to, we probably could. I mean, we could do various kinds of hackery, but I don't like it very much. I don't like it. It's a bad idea. I mean, we could use, you know, we could just, you know, we could reduce the footprint of the string highlight stuff in the string by using, it's a super bad idea. Never mind. Okay, so the question is it a string? And the answer is it really can't be a string if it has decorated highlighting. That means that these functions that accept normally strings for text processing better accept text element in that case too. The problem with that, as you say, is that text element has made the thing computable in some way, and for example, has lost some of the information that was there originally.
Yeah, I mean the super easy one, like, is just concerned with highlighting a string, but it's not a new symbol. You know, like highlighted string, and the first argument is a string, and second argument you have a bunch of information about the position and the color and the tag. And you know, it's not very computable. It's not computable at all, but it's very easy for all the functions that take a string to just take the first argument, and it will work.
I understand. So what you're suggesting is that in that case, there would be a pure string here, and the second argument would be either positions.
Yeah, positions and properties, you know, like the color, the style.
Right. If I wanted to, something like that.
Yeah.
Well, I do tend to think that that's not such a silly thing to have, because I think that we can't, in fact, do I mean, we can't return a string. So the issue is, see, the problem is that then we end up with things where we want to say things like a piece of it is labeled. You know, one thing is it's green or it's labeled with such and such. And the question is, do we have a precedent in visualization functions for doing stuff like this? I mean, in a sense, this reminds me, well, okay, let's take a very elementary example. Let's take number line plot, okay, where we can say, it's going to be kind of boring. Okay, what one could argue is that, not very convincingly perhaps, is that this is annotating the number line, that the number line is a thing as the string is a thing. See, but for example, let's take the example of the sequence alignment business. We would like to have a function that can display that. So imagine then that highlighted string has as its first argument a list. It probably has to have some default behavior when there's a list as its first argument that would normally put those strings together. But if there is an element of that first argument that isn't a string, then it has to display it in some reasonable way. Am I making sense? But then this is going to get messed up because this is positional. This is specifying where the highlighting is purely positionally. Get what I'm saying?
Yeah. But there's already something called highlighted. So I don't know, maybe this could be an extension. Like maybe when your second argument is tells where.
Well, why are we doing it this way at all? I mean, if look, for a string, you could just say row the.
Oh yeah, yeah, we could do something like that, definitely.
You know, but it's not going to be quite as.
Yeah, the problem is when you give that to. I mean, I guess we have a transformation function that.
Yeah, see, that's already wrong because there are no spaces there.
Yeah.
And again, there's a problem. Okay, let's go back again to this problem. The problem is tagging pieces of a string. So there are two ways to do tagging. One is by position, and the other is by what happens in sequence alignment, where you have the underlying string, and you've taken the underlying string and turned it into a list. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So, and the problem is, in, for example, the sequence alignment thing, obviously, the, you know, purely positioning, I mean, this is the lesson of the human genome or something, is just knowing, you know, okay, like how do you label, you know, you have to say build 37 of the human genome, position such and such on chromosome such and such, right? But for any actual person, that never lands in the right place, right? Because there are lots of insertions and deletions and so on along the strand. Makes sense? So, for example, for SNPs, there's this whole RS whatever thing where you're labeling, you know, you have to label a part of a string by some, I mean, in that particular case, the most common way, I mean, in practice, when, you know, if I look for a SNP, I just look for the flanking sequence around the thing and use that to determine it. That make any sense? So it's not that, you understand, there's no coordinate position that will work, right? You get what I'm saying? Do you understand what I'm saying? Or
I mean, when it's already separated?
No, I'm saying if you want to say the position, the beginning of your whatever it is gene, right?
Yes.
Oh, it is guaranteed that your gene will start at a different position than mine.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the question is then, and that is similar to what's happening here, where in doing something like this, it's not going to work, because as soon as you do any transformation on the string, you lose that position data.
Yes.
Which is why having a structure in which the annotation is in the structure is a better idea.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But the problem with that is that the structure as generated in, for example, text cases has removed the things that it considers irrelevant, like the punctuation, the spaces, and so on. Right?
Yeah. I mean, spaces could be a text element as well.
They could be, yes. They could be. And it could be something where text structure simplifies the, right, where, for example, for display, it simplifies that or something. I mean, it could be that the correct thing for text structure to do is to include every space here and just have that be something that doesn't happen to be displayed in the output from text structure.
Mm-hmm.
So, in other words, we could imagine a situation where the rule is that if you would just sort of thread through all the leaf text elements in the tree of text elements, that you would recover the original string. Am I making sense?
Yep. Yeah.
That's not completely stupid. Because then what we could do, in the case where you're trying to tag a particular country, the way it would look then is, text element of, blah, 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 comma, and then some text element of, Brazil, comma, and then it's tagging information, comma, and then it keeps going. And then that has the identity that if you thread through, right, so this has the same structure as our tree system. And if you thread through the leaves, you get back to the string.
And then the last question is when you don't have when you have partially overlapping, which I can't find an example right now, but I can imagine this.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so what on earth do you do in that case?
Does it exist first? Is there an example of a tag? I mean, I guess I'm sure it does. Yes.
Tag. What's that?
What?
No, even look, a tag, it obviously exists because you can tag something like, let's say we have...
totally overlapping, it's fine. It's exactly like the...
No, I understand, but it's obvious that there will be partial overlaps because, for example, we could have... I mean, you can see that in Wolfram Alpha Parser all the time, right? If I say, Blue Moon Productions, let's say, whatever that might be, right? Okay, Blue Moon is a taggable thing, and let's imagine Moon Productions is also a taggable thing, right? Then you've got overlap.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's imagine that we were going to represent that with text elements. What on earth will we do? What will we do? How would that look? So we have, say, text element of, and then we've got to tag. I don't understand how this works. It's not a tree, is it?
No.
No, it's not a tree.
There should be another construct to specify that the moon on the left text element and on the right text element are the same.
Yeah, well, that's horrifying.
Yeah.
Okay, but so what's the right way? I mean, you know, look, part of the problem here. Yeah.
Or it could be a text element where you have Blue Moon Productions. And so it's a bit like the highlighted string, actually. And it says Blue Moon is this and Moon Production is that. Which, of course, doesn't scale to larger stuff, but...
Okay, the alternative is to think of the string, the original string, as a coordinate system, which is what that highlighted string idea was doing. Mm-hmm. Think of that as a coordinate system and explain how to decorate things in that coordinate system. So in other words, what's the analog of number line plot? If it's almost like a string plot, okay? Where instead of thinking of it as the number line, you think of these discrete coordinates as being given by the characters of the string.
Yeah.
Now, you know, the analog for an image, we don't do badly in an image actually having pixel positions. So I wonder whether, you know, let's just imagine that there's a thing called string plot, okay? That essentially takes, I mean, it's a slightly, okay, actually, here's an analogy, okay? Here's an analogy. In geoplot, you know, the world is the background, so to speak. And every coordinate is relative to that background. And it's common to display the background as well as displaying the, you know, the highlighted coordinates. Making sense?
Yes.
So I wonder if there's an analogy there where the way to think about it is, you know, the string is the background and you're going to display it. I think this may be a good idea. Okay, so really we've got two competing concepts here. One is tagging, hierarchical tagging through text element. And the other is, I'm not sure highlighting is necessarily the only story because there could be all kinds of things here. I mean, in other words.
Actually, I was thinking if we want to represent that some characters are missing.
Well, I don't know, but I mean, let's imagine we have a string here, right? So let's take our, wherever it was. What is that background noise? You just, whatever. Gosh. Okay. So, okay. So now the question would be to give coordinates, like, for example, we could give 5 arrow, and then, I mean, let's imagine that we have something like 5, 10 arrow. Well, how would it look? Labeled. See, what would we do normally? Normally, what we would do in such a thing is we would say labeled 5, 10, comma, blah, blah, blah. Because effectively what we're doing is we're plotting, you know, so the most naive thing here, yeah, this is going to work. This is going to work. So look, the simple thing you can do, he says, it's a little weird that there are these sequences here, but imagine that you just had comma 5, 7, 10, whatever. That would mean, normally that would mean plot something at those positions, right? So here, this, I mean, again, I'm not completely sure about the way that this, but something like this might mean take that character sequence and, you know, do default plotting, which might be some kind of highlighting thing. Alternatively, you could say for this something like labeled whatever, comma, whatever it is. Or you could use all the other plotting kinds of things like call out and so on this. Does that make sense? I think it might actually be better to call it text plot. I'm not sure. So this is this is something to talk to Brett about, because he's got, you understand the point. What we're trying to do here is leverage all the pretty rich language we have, because what this effectively is something, I mean, if I were to do, let's just try a number line plot. Interval 2, 6, comma, interval 10, 14. Okay, great. I don't quite know why there are different levels like that. That's a little odd, but okay. So let's imagine now that we say labeled foo. And let's do this one, call out bar. Interesting. That should have worked, I think. Why did that not work? I thought that all these things would support those tagging forms. Well, that should work, I think. But you understand, if that did work, that's extremely analogous to what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, and we could put legends as well.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it could do more intelligent things if you have a big piece of text and so on. It could, I think this is the right approach, to treat it as essentially a graphical story, to treat this one as a graphical story, and then to also have this kind of hierarchical text element thing. Mm-hmm. So, okay, we're way over time. Let's set a separate meeting to talk about text plot with Brett and others, and maybe Jeremy Davis, and take it from there. Okay.
All right.
Anything else you there's nothing else you urgently need right now. You're not stuck on anything. I mean, this question about how you can reveal the set of possible text cases types.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, possibly they're entities, but I'm not sure. Go ahead. What?
Oh yeah. Okay. For that. Yeah. Yeah. It's something we should definitely find out. And otherwise, all this discussion, we should also think about possibly having something called text contents.
Yes, I agree. Analogous to image contents, which isn't quite finished.
Yeah.
But
for the so for the discoverability, you think global variable is not the way to go?
Hopeless. Not going to happen. Also, it's full of crud. I mean, by the time there's things like D in there, not as an entity, I think it's crazy. I mean, I think you're going to have something like that. It should be a bunch of entities. Am I making sense?
Do we have a precedent for that?
A list of entities?
Yeah, for discovering. Okay, so we will create a new type called, I don't know.
I don't know whether that's right. I mean, I don't know whether that's the right thing to do. I mean, the other possibility, there are things that we haven't, like a classic case that I'm not really happy with is if you try to discover what musical instruments exist in sound note. Okay. I'm pretty sure. So what I think we should do for that one is to just have it be, document it and put it in the data repository. Do you get what I'm saying?
I see.
Document this as being an entry in the data repository, because it's really, it's a funky list. I mean, we had tried to identify things like this that would be useful. I mean, that's what I think they should be. I think the data repository is kind of meta information, just like Wolfram Language data contains meta information about the language. There's no reason why the data repository can't contain meta information like that. And in terms of
versioning,
I'm sorry?
Is there a versioning? Like, is it
sure? There's versioning. Yes. I mean, how you maintain consistency. Okay, so that's
yes,
a question
exactly.
of if you're running such and such a thing, There is versioning in the data repository.
But can we link it to the version of the language?
We certainly can. If you say, I mean, I would imagine we can, if you say resource data of blah, I mean, that's a good question for Brad Ashby, but that's a reasonable thing. If we can do that, then it seems to me we're kind of home free on this, because then we just say resource data of, text cases types or something, and that is a rather simple element in the data repository that can be where the resource data itself can version when it is called from a particular version of the language. Make sense?
Yeah, and I guess we wouldn't do a web page about that, right? It would just be...
Well, there is a web page about it. Should there be a web page in the data repository? It would just be...
That's okay.
Right?
Yeah,
it's fine.
yeah, okay.
I mean, it's just a list of, this is, the data repository can contain all kinds of stuff. And that's a perfectly reasonable thing for it to contain, which happens to be meta information about the language.
Okay, let's investigate.
Yep. Okay, but let's get a meeting set about text plot.
Okay.
Okay, good stuff. Thanks a lot. Thanks to folks on the live stream. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.